Welcome to Around the Barrel.
You want to get that mic very close so it'll pick up that manly voice.
Yeah, so
1, 2, 3.
this coffee here is from the guys out in Shreveport, Louisiana, WFA, and they're another advisor firm or advisor group with our firm, RFG Advisory. So they heard about us doing the podcast, and they wanted to send us their own coffee for us to try out. So let's try it out.
And so we just got this, was it last week? And we've been sitting on this waiting to try this day because it's been the smell of this coffee is just
really
amazing.
The whole room has.
So we're all
embraced
anticipating this. So this is our first drink.
Here's
Let's give it a shot. Oh yeah, that was worth the wait.
There's some good
Heads up to you guys. Thank you.
hazelnut taste in there, and
Danny and everybody.
Danny,
We're gonna
Chase,
need a supply
and
of
Jody.
this.
Guys, thank you.
Josh, you remember the last time we were in New Orleans? When they delivered that, I thought I kind of smell some of that same New Orleans.
Well,
taste in it.
I think Louisiana coffee is kind of known for the chicory, right?
Right.
Which I cannot stand chicory coffee.
And see,
So I'm very
Nate
happy
and I
that
have this thing going. Every time I bring a craft coffee for him to try, he's like, "That tastes chicory." But the reality is, my memory of when we were in Louisiana, the chicory was more of a French roast taste.
Oh.
And what was the little biscuits we had with that? Do you remember?
The beignet.
Beignet, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it was hot and raining that day. The humidity was like 100%.
We waited in a line while it was raining.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing happened. It was Lance's birthday.
Oh.
And you had to wait for a seat because
Yeah.
they were packed and it was outdoors. Well, the gal came by to wipe off the table, and there was a glass of water left from the previous person sitting there, and she just poured it on the table and wiped it off. And I looked at Lance.
She goes, "It's clean."
I think Lance goes, "Don't let your beignet touch the table." I was like, I wasn't planning on it.
Well, good coffee,
was
guys.
good.
This
Very
is
good.
Oh, very good.
It has like cinnamon notes at the end.
We'll enjoy that. That was
Thank you.
awesome. Thanks for sending that down to us.
we're also going to try a new bourbon that never tried before. And so this is Horse Soldier Bourbon. Really cool backstory to this stuff is the guys who made it were the first group into Afghanistan after 9/11. And so if you've heard of the movie 12 Strong or
Right.
maybe seen that, it's kind of a representation of those guys.
Have you seen that?
Yeah. And
Is that the name of the book as well?
the book was called Horse Soldiers originally, and they kind of renamed it 12 Strong for the movie.
Right.
All right.
But the cool part is the captain of that, he's from here in Kansas, did our ROTC at K-State, and so be our first time trying this, but
Well, Jim's eyes kind of lit up when he walked in the room and saw that sitting there. So.
Well, I'm well rehearsed in this.
Okay.
do you want a little bit or not?
Sure.
Okay, I'll get you some, yeah.
You might lean into your
Oh,
mic a little
there
bit
you
more.
go.
There we go.
Sure, I want some of that.
We want to make sure
Yeah.
we got you recorded here.
I'll get another, 1 second, let me another cup real quick here.
I'm just going to stick to my coffee here.
Yeah, 1 second here. Oh.
Do you want ice in it or do you like it neat?
Ice is fine or just straight, doesn't matter.
It's like brown sugar.
You mean that?
Now, what's the purpose for doing that?
That's I used to help my grandpa make a little whiskey.
Did you really?
Yeah. And you shake it, and if it beads up, that will separate real quick. And if it separates real quick, that's good alcohol. But if it just lingers around and bubbles, you don't want to drink it.
So it looks good then, right?
That is excellent.
I never knew that.
I did not
That's
know that
cool.
either.
Well, the cool part, if you want to learn more about this, Jack Carr, who's an author of a book series called The Terminal List, he had the guys who made
Thank
this on his show or his podcast, and they really go
really?
into the back history of how they got created and
Jim?
everything. And so,
Cheers.
Cheers.
cheers,
That's
guys.
awesome. That's awesome. I'll do my coffee with you.
Lance, cheers your coffee.
Ooh,
Okay, here we go.
That is really good. You like it? Good.
Very
That
good.
is really good.
That is very good. What
Yeah.
was that made?
So I think their main distillery is in Kentucky, but I thought I read somewhere they might have one in Florida and Ohio too.
It could have.
Yeah, but yeah, they got a really cool backstory. And again,
Did you already mention how the mold?
no, yeah, and so I guess the mold on how they make the actual glass and everything, because you see that little emblem right there.
Yes.
The is it the
steel?
iron or the steel that they made that mold from is actually from the
Twin Towers?
from
Twin
World Trade
Towers,
Center. Yeah, and
9/11.
so they
So every bottle has touched steel from the
That's pretty
World
cool.
Trade Center. That's
again,
crazy.
since they were the first guys who went over to Afghanistan after 9/11, and
Cool story.
they actually rode on horseback
Yeah.
with the with some of those guys over there. That's crazy.
That's hard to
But-
believe that was 2 decades ago, or 20. What is
Yeah.
it? 21
So-
years.
Well, Jim,
2
we,
decades you've been here.
we were excited about having you coming in, and here you are. You said you kind of already shared a little bit of your past. You used to help your grandpa make bourbon,
Moonshine.
moonshine. so give us a little backstory there. What was that about?
Well, my grandfather. See, I'm originally from Lookout Mountain, Alabama, in the Appalachian Mountains. Yeah, right below Chattanooga, Tennessee. Right, Lookout Mountain, where the Battle of Chickamauga and all that
Yeah.
took place. I'm just down the road from there and into Alabama.
Jim, I want to make sure we record this. Can we scoot your chair forward a little bit more?
You stand up, and we'll slide you up a little bit.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Eat the mic. Eat the mic.
Eat the mic.
Yeah,
Yep.
there you go.
And like little tiny place, there's a little town there called Mentone, and I actually went to school at a wooden school that was built back in the 1800s. So
Awesome.
Wow.
And DeSoto Falls is named after DeSoto that came even through Kansas, the explorer. He came up through Florida, came across Lookout Mountain, camped out at DeSoto Falls, and it's a national park now. It's huge. And our house was in the woods right behind it, and they call it the Big Forest, or the Big Woods. And we lived in a shack, you know.
Wow.
And my dad was a sawmiller. My grandfather was a rock mason, and just, you know, common laborers, nothing, kind of poor. And Grandpa made whiskey on the side. So he would have me come with him so I could chop wood and
Right.
carry water and stir in the sugar and get the mash set up and everything. Then once the mash worked off, we'd come back and he'd get the still going. And
How old were you during this time?
I was probably around 10, and that lasted up till I was about 14. And he said, you know, once you get 14, if revenuers come in here, you're going to go to prison. So I want you to quit doing this with me.
That's cool.
But I paid close attention, and I've actually made some myself.
Really?
Yes.
Is it pretty difficult to do it?
It's an art. It really is. The first batch I made, actually, I'll tell you this. I ordered a still from Colorado High. They make stainless steel ones. And the first batch I made tasted like kerosene. And the second one, tolerable. And then I kept researching, and I actually went online and watched these guys, you know, and those memories come back. My grandfather, he had a recipe, and I didn't know what it was. And one day, stayed up all night watching the temperature as it was running. And you watch these guys on TV that are doing those, the hillbillies that are running the moonshine, and there's a big stream coming out. I thought that's the way it's supposed to be, but that's not it. It's a drip, drip, drip. It's not a flow. A flow is something like you go down to Jack Daniels, where they make millions of gallons, you know, but for a little 5-gallon still, it's just drip, 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 drip. And you got to regulate the heat, and you got to watch it real close. And the stuff that comes out there is like 190 proof to 210. So you have to cut that, and you've got to cut it with spring water, not distilled water or not tap water. Tap water to kill it. So the water that goes in, this is probably 50-50. What is that, about 80 proof?
88 proof.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's probably half, just not distilled water, but clean water. And that's the whole trick of making moonshine, is find the water.
Wow.
So do you have a favorite bourbon or whiskey that you like to get, or is it like, I just kind of get whatever I want?
Oh, I like to test around. Used to, I was really big into Jack Daniels, but I was too big into it, so I quit. And so now I just like to do something like this every once in a while, have a little drink.
That's the problem. Is you gotta be able to control it and do it in moderation, because it can really, it can mess you up if you get too deep into it. And unfortunately, for a lot of guys, that's the problem.
Yeah.
And
Well,
So I
Jim,
remember
you can drink with your pastor here.
Sounds good.
you ever think that would happen?
No.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. The first time I met you was at a Saturday morning Bible study that Nathan's dad used to lead, and really got to know you pretty well and enjoy your stories. And I thought, yeah, we had a good time on that.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot. I thought I knew the Bible pretty well, but I found out I didn't.
Well, I think we can always keep learning, right?
It's
Right.
something new every time, and I appreciate that, Josh, that you explain that on Sundays, and you don't.
Well, I appreciate
like
you
it.
putting up with me. You actually come back.
That's good.
You keep giving them whiskey, they'll
Yeah, I
keep
was
coming
gonna
back
say.
to your service. And so Jim, when did you decide to join the Army, or what led you to joining the Army then?
Well, I was a high school dropout, and
And you're still in Alabama during this time, right?
right.
Okay.
I'm still in Alabama, and I was in the 9th grade, and I was stubborn and a little bit stupid, and so I dropped out and ended up working at a sawmill, and then I got a job in Rome, Georgia, with a cash construction company, and I was 16, so I was legal at that time to work, but for some reason they didn't pay me, like that. So
Get away with it.
yeah, we're putting in sewer pipe, and it's so hot. It's 110, and I'm down in a hole, and there's no wind blowing down here. So lunchtime comes, and, you just carry a jelly sandwich or something like that, and we get out and get under a shade tree. And I look across the street, and this guy comes out, and he's all nice uniform and everything. He's smoking a cigarette, waving at people. And I was working with this guy. I said, I want that job. And he looked at me and said, okay, give me your sandwich. Go over there and talk to him. And I didn't give him my sandwich. I ate it real quick. Then I went over and talked to him. And Vietnam was going on real strong at that time. And he went, oh, my son, come on in. Boy, his eyes lit up real big. And I told him how old I was. I was 17, and I only like 2 weeks of being 17 and a half, and that's what you had to have and then have your parents sign for you. And that's another story by itself. But anyway, I ended up in the Army, ended up at Fort Polk, Louisiana.
What year did you join? What year was that when you joined?
That was 71.
71, okay.
Yeah. I ended up in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and and it was kind of warm and humid down there.
So where you're from in Alabama, do you get that humidity that middle to southern part of Louisiana gets there? And
no, you do, but it's not as bad.
Okay.
And once we started training, you lose a lot of weight real quick, you know. And we were old wooden barracks. The mosquitoes were just unreal. They just eat you up. They had screens on, but
what month did you start basic at Fort Polk? Do you know?
June.
Oh God.
2nd of June, 1971.
So you're there in August and September in Fort Polk when it's
8 weeks.
oh man.
And from there, I went to Fort Knox to advanced training, and that was M60 tanks. The M60, not the M60A1, the M60.
Did you want to go on tanks and be armory, or did you?
This is how much smart I was. I said I want to be a heavy equipment operator because I thought if I had learned a trade, I could go back to the construction work,
Right.
and maybe operate a bulldozer or something. You know, at least I'd be sitting on.
You're not
something.
in the ditch.
I'm not in the ditch. I'm making the ditch. You know.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, we get to Fort Knox, and I said, "What kind of thing is that?" I knew it was a tank, but I'm thinking, why? You know. And the next thing I know, I graduate. Then I go through a crash course on Sheridans, which was M55A1s with a 105.2 millimeter main gun, made out of aluminum of all things, and they were designed for scout and reconnaissance, and they were super fast and very, very powerful.
Is a Sheridan a tank?
It is
Okay.
a tank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the M4 Sheridan was the main tank in World War II,
Yeah,
correct? Okay.
Yeah, and these were basically used in Vietnam, and they were fast, short gun tube, big projectile, and I thought, okay, I'm going to Vietnam. Well, things are crazy in the Army. The next thing I know, I'm on an airplane headed to Korea. And I landed in Korea. And I'm kind of heartbroken because I wanted to go to Vietnam, and because I had a lot of friends there. But I had to be 18, and I only liked a couple of weeks, and I would have been 18. And so they sent me to Korea. Well, I landed in Korea. We're in processing there in Yongsan and Seoul, and a sergeant comes in and he hollers, "Everybody over 6 foot stand against that wall." Okay. I got up there. He said, "All right, throw your orders on the floor. All you guys go out and get on the bus. You're going to the 110th MPs. We need MPs for security guards." Well, as we processed through, some guys didn't make it because they were checking the background investigations on them. And we get on this bus, and we bounce all over Korea. It was interesting. I never had seen a lot of that stuff. I was a young kid.
So what did the height have to do with that? 6 foot or over? Is that?
MPs normally back then had to be above 6 foot.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And most of those guys were 6'5", 6'6", and I think some of them were 7 foot. I mean, I had a first sergeant. I think he was 7 foot.
And I'm ignorant. What's an MP?
Military police.
Oh.
With a size 14 shoe, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And a fist that looked like
Back when they could hit you in the
oh,
Army.
yeah, they would hit you. And the dogs.
You trained to be on tanks.
Yeah.
And you go to typical Army. You go to do something completely different.
Yeah.
Throw your orders
Did
on
you
the floor.
have to do any kind of training with the MPs then to kind of, or was it just like, hey, we're going?
No, we came in and that was 3 weeks of deadly force, when to use your weapon,
Okay.
Medical, how to read dose meters, how to mop gear, which is NBC chemical gear. Oh, it's so hot.
Very comfortable to wear, right?
Yeah. And then I fell in love with a girl downtown and got married, and then I lost my security clearance, and I had orders and all my stuff headed to Camp Casey, Korea, to the 2nd Infantry Division to the 2nd of the 72nd Armor.
So you're going back to tanks now.
I went back to tanks. And when I got there, I thought, oh, boy, I'm going to get on some nice tanks. Yeah, I got there. It was M48 85s. The old.
So
you trained on the M60s, and now we'll get you this old junk here.
Yeah. And our main mission for the first 3 months was to get them fixed up, because they were going to give them to the Koreans, the Korean Army, and then we'd get our M60A ones. And then we had to go out on training and everything. Of course, we had a mission up on the DMZ, and of course, I'm the first.
Is that when that incident happened?
Yeah.
You got to get that picture out here.
Yeah.
What's the story behind this picture here?
Okay, this is something that happened that really wakes you up.
Now, I'm not a tank. I don't know anything about tanks, but when I was a kid, I rode a bike and the chain fell off. That's what that looks like.
The track did fall off on that one for sure.
Oh yeah, the track came right off of that.
And so what's that process?
Okay, the platoon leader, at that time I was an E5, I think, and so I was his wingman, and and we're pulling into a position, and it's pretty dark, it's dusk, and he says, all right, he pointed at me and said, you back in there, and it was canopy over this creek bed. Well, during the monsoons, it washes a lot of the old armament and everything. You'll find anything over there. And as I'm backing in, I ran over an anti-tank mine that had been there since the 52 or 3. And it lifted the tank up, and it split it. There, if you look real close, you can see a crack right along here somewhere. And that little dog that you see in the picture right there.
Oh, yeah, there is a dog.
Yeah.
All right, let me see the crack here. What happened to the dog?
Yeah, the crack's right there.
Oh, wow.
And the little dog, it always rode up there, and it was, we called it Yobo. That means honey in Korea. And Yobo made the biggest, tremendous leap I have ever seen. It was just a flash. And it didn't hurt her or anything. She just, poop, she's gone.
And that was, you said you were driving along the DMZ when that happened?
No, well, we were guarding.
Okay.
There was an infantry company in front of us along the fence, and we were back. You know, we were hiding, trying to hide. It's hard to hide a tank. And so there's a gully, and it's washed out, and the trees growed across it. So that's a perfect area, you know. So I'm backing in there, and I got my fields of fire. I can see the infantry moving around, and we're setting up you know, we'd already talked about range cards, and range cards are distances that you fire at, you know. You will automatically, when they get up to that flag or that tree or that rock, that's 1,200 meters, that's 800 meters, and you just add that to your rangefinder and, you know, touch them.
Touch them.
So they were new.
So how new were you guys to this new unit then when that happened?
Oh, that unit had been there.
Or how long had you been there before that happened?
Oh, I'd been there about 4 months.
So, okay, you're pretty fresh then.
I was a fresh guy, yeah. And
So what do you do? What happened after that? What's the next?
well, the next step after this, it became cannibalized. So another tank had lost.
So you mean you take parts off of it?
Yeah, it became a cannibal tank, and I ended up getting another one. And
Are you a tank commander at this time then? or are you?
Yes, as an E5, I was a tank commander, and we had like a Spec 4 or a corporal as a tank commander too, because we were so low at that time on NCOs.
So how long did it take you to get E5? 71, you joined in about.
1, 2. It took about 3 or 4 years.
It's about 74, 75, and was what's happening.
That's when that happened. Yeah.
So Nate, you come from a tank background. Was your tanks anything like this, or?
I mean, I only had like 2 or 3 years, and I was on the officer side, so these.
Yeah.
He knows. Yeah, and
He's high tech.
we had a lot more tech. Which Jim, you had an introduction later on in your career with the newer tanks, but
We had the old geese flying rangefinder. You had the laser.
Yeah.
So you're in the potential battle zone for this. Did you feel safe in those tanks, as far as just being sitting duck out there?
Oh, you remember there was a tree chopping incident that an officer was killed. They went out to cut a limb off because they couldn't see the fields of fire. That happened when I was there. And also the tunnel incident where North Korea had dug under the fence and there was steam coming up out of the ground. And we were there, and 2 ROKs are Korean soldiers, regular Army.
Okay.
And they're investigating that. And then this major came up, American, and he hollered at a couple of guys, and they came over with some picks and shovels and opened it up, and it was a tunnel. And he jumped down with a flashlight, and they shot him and killed him. And then
So they were digging it by hand underneath the fence.
yes.
Yeah.
They had a track in there. They could roll back and forth.
and that was in
Oh, wow.
so that was in South Korea then.
Right. They had made it under the fence into our battle positions. We had a designated battle position, and we don't know for sure, but we think what their idea was to tunnel under our battle positions. And if we ever pull back in and things got sour, they would set those off and just blow us into
The indication was the steam coming from that.
Right. It was cold, and there was warm air coming up
You're like,
through that.
what's this
And-
phenomenon?
Yeah. And there don't supposed to be any
Right.
any sewer pipes or any water lines or anything like that. That's an off limits area, you know. And poor guy lost his life. That was pretty bad.
yeah.
And we went into full mode, and we're in our defilette positions, and they opened fire on us. And there was bullets bouncing off the tank.
From the tunnel, they opened fire on you guys?
From across the fence.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they got towers over there. They're camouflaged, and they got buildings over there. They're mock buildings, and they got machine guns set up in that and rockets and everything. They got it all, and there's tanks in behind it. I mean, it looks like a building, but we knew what it was. It was just a front, and they opened up on us, and that gave those guys in the tunnel enough time to get out of there, and before our engineers got up there and boom, sent them a little fire back through that tunnel.
So during that time, I guess the rules of engagement for you guys, if you receive fire across the DMZ from people in North Korea, could you return fire, or is it no?
We had to, the way that worked. It was 8th Corps, and they were 8th Corps was 3-star general in Japan, and then you had 2nd Infantry Division commander, and at that time it was General Emerson, I think, 2-star, and he would ask permission at by the time they got through that,
It was already done with.
yeah, it was over, and he just told us to button up and sit there. So we sat there about 3 days in the tank, buttoned up, eating frozen sea rations, trying to stay warm because it didn't have any heaters.
So how cold was it there during that time?
Oh, at night it would get down probably 10, 12. Yeah.
Because that's a pretty mountainous region in that area, right?
Oh, it's very cold there. It's super cold. Actually, if you think about it, the 38th parallel is equal with Kansas.
Yeah.
Around the globe. So when it's 0 here, it's 0 there.
Wow.
And the only difference is the oceans are closer because it's a smaller country. This is dry, and that's wet. That's a wet, bone-chilling cold. And it's nothing to wake up in the morning in your sleeping bag if you're sleeping on top of the tank and unzip it, and it's just white. And you stick your hands up through that snow and open that up, and you're just covered in snow. But you're very comfortable.
Wow.
Golly. And so how long then did you stay in Korea before? Because your next place you went to was Germany. Is that correct? After Korea?
I spent, I came to Fort Knox, I came to Fort Riley, and I was promoted to E6. And
Was that about 78 then, 77 coming to Fort Riley?
70, yeah, James is, 77.
And so the lady you mentioned that you met in Vietnam, that is...
No, she was Korean.
Korean, yeah. That's now your wife. And so did she come back with you then at that time? Okay.
Yeah. And then I came down on orders of all things to go back to Korea. And I got to Korea. We spent a year, and that was enough because you got kids. You don't want to. It wasn't a place for kids, and so I got orders to go to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I was a senior, becoming a senior E6 by then, and I ended up teaching gun functions at Schedule Hall, and
this was back when the Army school or the Armory School was back in Fort Knox, right? Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And we had a whole company that we trained, advanced training to officers, to Israelis. Yes.
Really?
Even some Turks. There was all kinds of Egyptians. It's a good story.
You want some more coffee real quick while we're going?
Oh, no, I'm
okay.
good.
I was going to say, I can get you some more coffee because I want to get some more. You want some more?
I'm teaching gun functions, and we've got a mock-up. It's a real gun, and it's not in the tank. I got it sitting on these, stands, and I'm going over, this is a bore evacuator, this is the witness lines, this is a breech block, and it weighs 95 pounds, And on this side of the room, there's Israeli officers, and they had fought in the, Yom Kippur War.
Really?
Yeah. And on this side, they had Egyptians.
Oh. Yeah.
And I'm going down the spill, and the next thing I know, somebody said something. I didn't understand what it was. And it was on. The whole room erupted. And I just said, well, I can't do nothing about that.
Training's over.
I just cut the slides off and stepped back in the cloakroom.
Man, that's wow.
I mean,
Did they have guns and stuff? I mean,
No,
okay.
They were all in dress uniform.
Oh.
but you
okay.
would have thought someone had the knowledge to not put those two groups in the same room.
But
But that's the Army, right?
Yeah, that was the stupidest thing they could have ever done.
So were you teaching them on the M60s then, or were you Were you actually doing like
The 105 cannon.
Merkava was the Israeli tank, right? The Merkava.
Right.
So were they introducing that at all, or was it only, hey, we're learning on the M60 and that's it?
Right. Well, the Macawa had the 105 cannon.
Okay.
And the Egyptians had bought M48s with the 105 cannon on it. So it, apples and oranges.
They're pretty close together. Okay.
So can you guys educate us, a guy like me and Josh, what's a 105 cannon? What's that?
Oh, 105 millimeter.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big gun.
So I was going to say the diameter of that shell,
4 inch.
that'll do some damage.
It will. But now they've got the 120, which is on the M1A1, the 120, 120 millimeter.
Wow.
And it's
So how long were you teaching at Fort Knox for then? Is that where you going? Was that kind of right up to the 80s then when you were teaching there?
that was 78, and I got out of the Army. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I got out, and I came back to Alabama, and I was working for a doctor on a farm, and part-time working in a strip mine, driving a powder truck, and couldn't make it.
So
Just
at this
couldn't
time you have 2 kids in at this time, right?
Right.
Okay.
And my wife said, "No more of this. I can't go on like this." We were back in the hills, and so I went down, seen a recruiter, and he said, "Well, gosh, maybe I can get you back in. You got to lose about 10 pounds, and you've got going to go back in as an E5 instead of an E6."
So you were an E6 when you got out. They're gonna
Right.
bust rank a little bit to get you back in.
What is that ranking? What is that when you say E6? I'm completely ignorant.
Sergeant, 3 stripes is a sergeant, E5. You got private,
Does-
first class.
Does the E stand for enlisted, right?
Enlisted.
So you have E1 through like E9.
Yeah.
And then you have O on the officer side, O1 through whatever. So you have,
I see.
Yeah, so it's the higher number, the progression of rank.
Right,
And the more pay.
So,
Right.
Yes.
so he said you come back as an E5.
right. But I had time in service, so that really helped me out a lot. And they sent me to Fort Riley, and I spent 5 years there, and I couldn't believe it. I put in for orders to go everywhere and everything, and did not. They said, "No, you're going to stay here." So I went to Master Gunner School. Master Gunner School is back to Fort Knox, and you got to know everything about the tank. And it's a real hard school, and I just barely passed it.
But as a master gunner, that's where you can control the range for training, right?
I
You
ran
control all of the
everything.
training pretty much for, is it a battalion?
Well, you start out in a company,
Okay.
and you're company master gunner, and once you're the rankingest E7, then you move to battalion and become the overall master gunner.
And so you're planning then at that point, you're doing all the range time, all the range preparation for every company.
I'm writing all the scenarios. I'm doing all the range logistics. Yeah, that was a lot of work.
You learned a lot of knowledge though during that time. I've been on.
I sure
on
did.
That.
I increased my IQ, I guess you might say. A lot of studying.
So this is during the Cold War era, and so was
Yeah.
the training kind of still World War II kind of style training textbook,
no.
or was the doctrine a whole lot different than what they're
Completely
teaching?
different.
Okay.
We trained to fight Soviets.
Okay.
And their doctrine is to go around you and come in on your flanks. And we train to hit them either on the left or the right flank and disorientate them. And one of our big things was the Air Force, and that proved it during Desert Storm when the Air Force came in and just hammered those guys. We only had to mop up, that's all. And so, yeah, a big thing in Germany was Folder Gap. That's flat ground that came right down. And during World War I, that's how they came into Germany, the Soviets. And also when they came in during World War II. Sorry, I got a southern drawl.
Yeah, that's all right. We all talk funny at times. So you were at Fort Riley doing master gunner for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And then is that when you went over to Germany then
I
after
went
that?
to Germany
Okay.
then.
How was that experience going to Germany?
Oh, Germany was okay.
Because the Berlin Wall is still up at this time.
Yes,
Okay.
very, very strong. The good part was the food and the beautiful country. I was stationed in Mainz, Gunzenheim, and it was our company. There was only one company of tanks there. That was in 8th Army, and it was an infantry battalion, and we were attached to that infantry battalion, and they hated us. You know how that is, rivalry. And I was the company master gunner. And this is a picture we took they put it on the board. And
Look the exact same still. Nothing's changed at all.
Right.
That's you.
That is.
Don't say it like that. So
We definitely need to put these photos when we do the.
Let me check that out.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
So then with your stripes there, you are a E7, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And
You look pretty serious in that photo, Jim.
well, back then I was. I only weighed about 185 pounds.
He's got to deal with all these dumb young lieutenants everywhere, and
Yeah.
he's got to get them all shaped up and everything. So,
had to keep them out of trouble.
so in Germany, were you guys doing a lot of training then too, or is it kind of more garrison style, or?
Constantly trained.
Okay.
Never stopped. Folder, recon. That means then we go to Grafenwehr, tank gunnery. They had a huge tank complex up there the Germans had built and the Americans together. And we would go twice a year, but we would have to railhead. And railhead is, loading the tanks on the train and go up and offload, then go get ammo and go through that drill. And we had ammo on the tanks, but we would have to take the live ammo off and put training ammo on. That's the blue one that you see there. That's training. The real ammo is black.
Yeah, you don't want to mess up that distinction between those two.
Yeah. Ping. Bounce off of you.
So when you were over in Germany, were the Germans pretty receptive to you guys being there?
The older Germans were very, very much so.
Okay.
I had some elderly come up and say thank you for taking care of us. Some of the younger generation, they that's like everywhere. They're growing up. They're learning life, and they think.
Well, World War II is far enough behind them; they don't remember those years.
Yeah, and they kind of washed their history.
Right.
You can say it. Us youngins don't know anything, and we think we know everything, and so.
Well, not all of them are like that, but I remember my history. But they washed it because. They were embarrassed because of the Holocaust and all that. And they tried to suppress it and not teach their kids that they were that bad.
Yeah.
And so those kids grow up spoiled and not knowing why the Americans are there. They think we're just there to drink and party and run over the curbs and the trees and stuff with our tanks. And I can see how they think that.
Yeah.
But now everything's downsized over there so much that, there's that. I just was thinking the other day, Fort Riley and Fort Knox is the only two places that are still active. All the rest of the places I was at are gone. And Fort Knox is really not armor anymore. It's more logistics.
It's all kind of human resources or the HRC kind of part now. And
So the big Ramble 1 out at Fort Riley is really the only thing that's left. So it kind of tells me that I'm getting old.
Hey, Jim, you earlier in the conversation you were talking about your parents and your entry into the military.
Oh, yeah.
You said there's a little story there.
Oh, yeah, there he is.
All right, let's can you share that with us?
Sure.
All right.
Sure. My my father, he worked at Cash Construction as well, and I told him what I wanted to do. And he said, well, I'll think about it. That's the kind of guy he was. He liked to think about things. Well, on the way home, I had a 49 Ford pickup truck, of course, and we're driving along, and he's thinking, and I said, what do you think, Dad? You've been thinking about it? And he said, well, I'll let your mom know. We'll talk to her first. Oh, gosh, she just had backflips, you know. No, I ain't signing nothing. I ain't doing that. Oh, no. And I said, well, you know, all right, let's eat supper. And so, of course, young 17-year-old boy, about 6'1", sat down and guff about 4 or 5 pieces of chicken, you know. And Dad said, right there's the reason we need to get rid of him. He's going to eat us out of house and home.
Let him go, Mama.
That's awesome.
So
That's good.
he convinced her into signing the papers, and that was best thing ever did in my life. If not, I would have been. There's nobody but out of probably 20 guys in my class and girls. There's probably only about 4 of us left, and most of them either drugs, big time was drugs, and that area got really bad with drugs, and because they got depressed, a lot of the mills closed. There was no jobs, and I thank my wife to this day. It was a blessing for her to convince me to go back in the military and finish up and get my retirement.
Awesome.
Believe it or not, when I was a private at Fort Knox, I was tasked to go to the O Club, which is the officers' club, and have dinner. And now you got to think, I was an old country boy, and up around Kentucky, they had this chicken place they called Kentucky Fried Chicken. Well, it hadn't reached down where I was at. Well, I'm sitting at this table, and there's officers there, and there's about 4 privates. We were invited. There's this old man sitting over at the end of the table, about this close, all white hair, little mustache, little goatee, little blow tie, and they come in and they serve us. And he's not saying a word, you know, and we're eating chicken, and he's watching us, you know.
This is awesome.
And the officers are talking, hey, Colonel, how you doing? You know, I thought he was a real colonel. I had no clue. You know, I'm calling him yes, sir, no, sir, you know, standing at attention. I didn't know what army he was in, but he was in chicken army, that's for sure.
That's great.
And he said, I'm going to go around the room here. He talked like that. He said, how you like that chicken, son? And they're all going, oh, it's great. Well, I got there late and didn't get in on, you know, being briefed. And he got to me, and I said, oh, it's pretty good, but it's not as good as my grandma's. Oh, man, those officers grabbed me up and hauled me out of there. You know
who this is?
I didn't know it was Colonel Sanders.
The one critic, right?
Oh,
That
man.
is awesome.
I pulled guard duty for a month.
That's so good.
Hey, that's probably a good pausing point.
So you got out in you get out in 91, 92?
93.
93.
I retired in 93.
And then you came back.
Here.
Okay.
I asked my wife, I said, hey, you followed me around for 20 odd years. Where do you want to go? Well, her sister was here. And I said, okay, no problem. We'll come here. And I got a job here working at B&R Auto, and that didn't last very long till he went bankrupt. I'm sorry. And then I got a job with Triplet at storage buildings, and I was cutting grass and cleaning out storage buildings. And then my brother-in-law came by, and he said, I really need some help. he was cleaning chimneys and working. And we hadn't opened the store. We hadn't done anything. This was way back. We were working out of a garage, out of his garage in his backyard. And I said, okay. So I went in and told Dean Allen, which is a great guy. He was a great guy. And I miss him. And, he was heartbroken because he wanted me to take over there. And so, long story short, 28 years later, chimney sweep, salesman, repairman, hearth technician, gas, wood, pellet. I had a heart attack, and then I had a stroke, and I came in one morning and I told my brother-in-law, I said, here's a piece of paper. It's all yours. I quit.
And that's Milestone here in town, right?
Milestone.
Okay. Milestone. Sorry, Milestone.
Yep.
I think my first time hearing about you, you've worked with my dad and my grandpa with houses.
Oh, yeah.
And my first time actually hearing about you was from my grandpa.
Yeah.
And he probably wasn't the easiest guy to work with, but he wanted perfection.
Actually, he wasn't bad at all. He was high strung.
Yeah.
And he wanted everything done right. And
I get it from him, I've been told.
and there's nothing wrong with that. And in the fire business, I call it being in the fire business, you got to be point on. There's no left, right. It's straight on. You got to follow the way it's supposed to be, the manuals, the testings, and everything. You can't deviate from. You deviate from that, and something happens, and somebody gets hurt.
Yeah,
you're going to jail.
The first time I heard about you, you were referred to me as the chimney guy who was on tanks. So that's what I always knew you as. That's the chimney guy who's on tanks. And so
people, I'd go in and clean their chimney and say, "How in the world did you get into this?" Oh no.
Yeah, that's cool.
Then I'd have to tell them, I retired out of the Army, and my brother-in-law started this company in '78, and I come along.
Wow.
Yeah.
This has been a great interview.
That's a full
today.
life, Jim.
yeah, that's an awesome. We appreciate you coming on here
thanks
and
for
talking,
coming on.
and it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. It has.
So we're ready to record. Are you ready to go now?
Yeah. You got me warmed up.
Okay. That was good.
You still drive the old truck around though?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a 1923 T model that I restored, except for the paint. I'd like to sell that. I need to downsize, and I've got my show truck, which is a 49 Ford pickup, all cleaned up. Then I got Rusty. Rusty is 1951, and it was left out in the pasture for years and years, and I drive that all the time.
Is that the one that has the logo of the
logo on
the gray one, or kind of a,
So that 49, is that the same model you and your dad used to drive to work?
Exactly.
That's what I was wondering.
that's pretty cool.
Good memories.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You still do car shows then?
I do.
that's awesome.
Try to raise money for the community through our. Of course, I'm a Mason, and we go to the KKOA, and we try to raise money, and we just give out. We just gave out a $4,000 scholarship to 2 individuals, kids' name, and they are just so happy. After we present it to them, we have a little cake and coffee, and their family comes, and it really feels good that you can do something for these kids. He was born handicapped, and he struggled through life. He's probably been picked on and stuff like that, but he is sharp as a tack, very sharp, and I believe he's going into finance. I'm not sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. And very great kids, and they really want to make something out of themselves. And
Good.
I do everything I can for them.
That's awesome.
It's really cool.
There's 2 more things I want to do before we leave. We got a bunch of pictures here. If you would, real quick, just kind of tell us what, I know we got the tank one there, we had the picture of you, but the other couple of pictures, tell us real quick what those pictures are.
I just grabbed them out of my daughter's got all my pictures. That one right there is on it's not the Autobahn, but we're traveling, and that's how the Germans do. They just run in and out of the tank formations. They don't understand that it takes about 7 or 8 lengths of that tank to stop.
Ooh.
Now the M1s, they stop pretty quick.
They're on a dime.
Yeah, but those didn't. And so
Risk.
we ran over a few. We did. We crushed a few.
Tell us about
Oh
this
my
one,
goodness.
Okay, this is an M60 A3, and it's got laser and thermal sights, and it's one of these turned into a modern tank. It's in between this one and the M1, just the M1, not the M1A1. And I did get on the M1 and had fun with it until I found out that it moved too quickly. Scared me a little bit and bruised me up.
Wow.
So this is the M60A1 right here. The smaller picture you said?
M60 A3.
A3,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
So growing up, did you have any Bible in your life, or I've heard about your grandfather.
Oh yeah, we had a lot. My grandmother was very religious, and she would let you know it in a heartbeat. But you got to think about this is the Bible Belt, southern.
That's why I was asking.
Yeah, and
Grandpa made the whiskey, and Grandma
broke it. Yeah. Normally he'd try to get it to somebody so they could go and sell it, before she found the whiskey still. And, oh boy!
So she kind of pounded the Bible into you a little bit.
Oh yes, very much. And you said prayers, and you said amen, and amen, and you opened doors for people. They were very strict, and I really appreciate that. I've got so many whoopings when I was a kid. They just spank you in a heartbeat, didn't care where it was at. And I needed every one, and I respect them for that.
You bet.
I just, I believe that. And they didn't beat me or anything, but,
Discipline.
I was disciplined,
Yep.
Good 3 hard swats on the fanny. And when you're in the grocery store and you're trying to stick a piece of candy in your pocket, you automatically put it back, but you still got to smack to make you remember it, and it embarrassed you more than anything.
Yeah.
But it taught you a good lesson. Who's watching? Mama.
That's awesome.
And,
When did you become a Christian then?
Oh, I was baptized. This is really weird. Church of God of Prophecy. I went to the neighbor lady. I was probably 13 years old, and Mom had took us to church before, but it was at a Methodist. It was Methodist, and Grandma was Methodist, and she wanted everybody to be Methodist and everything. And so one day the neighbor lady came down, and they were Church of God of Prophecy, which is I'm not really sure, but. It was kind of nice because he had a little girl, about my age, So I wanted to go.
Motivation.
She was cute.
Hey, we were all young once.
Yeah, and so I'm sitting there, and the preacher comes bouncing down and grabs this bottle of olive oil and all over me, and pushes me down and starts praying on top of me and wants me to confess my sins. And I go, I'm like, I stole a biscuit this morning.
They didn't do that ever at the Methodist church?
No,
From Col Sanders.
Yeah. They were so strict at the Methodist church, you just sat there most of the time. And then one day, next to my grandma's house, this old house was there, and there was this old guy out trying to, I could tell he had never cut grass before with his push mower, the old sickle.
The old school blade, yep.
And I go over and I say, "You need some help with that?" He said, "Sure." And so we cut the grass, and come to find out he was an Episcopalian priest, retired, and moved up on the mountain with his wife. And the next thing I know, I'm an altar boy. And I've got a picture to prove it. Well, long story short, that's probably when I was 14 or something. And then kind of got out of that and ended up in the military, and, of course, chaplains,
Yeah.
Didn't matter what faith you were or anything, they could pray over you. And then we came back out, and the kids went to a Lutheran private school for a while, and they were baptized. So actually, I've been baptized about 3 or 4 times.
Some of us need it more than others.
I know it. I probably need a shot again.
You got the pastor right here to do it for you. So
That's true. Yeah.
He'll take you down and pour olive oil in.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I've had the olive oil. I've had the water in the towel. And we were going to a swimming hole up at Taylor's Ford one time. We come in there on bicycles, and they were doing a baptism. There's all these people in white cloths, and then the pastors out there. And these old ladies said, "Come here, boys. Come here." And the next thing,
Down you go, huh?
yeah, that's 3. then we're fixing to get on a plane somewhere. I think I was at Travis Air Force Base, and some of them guys call him Padre, some of them call him Father, some of them call him Chaplain or Pastor. And the next thing I know, he's baptizing all of us before we get on the plane. So, hey.
4 times.
You're covered, man.
I don't know. I hope they were.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Good
So you've
deal.
seen a lot of change. I mean, just our country, the military, from being younger to where we are at right now, being wiser now and going through a lot of things. Recommendation, last words of advice to younger people right now.
Read the history books. If I had any good advice, I believe read the real history of the United States.
That's right.
Because if you ain't got God and know your history, you're headed downhill, and it's just going to get worse. And I was so blessed growing up with religion was a staple. I mean, you did not say a bad word and not get a bar of soap stuck in your mouth and a good spanking. And your history was taught in school, and it wasn't changed. The teachers didn't go, well, the North won, and, well, the South and this, and it was because of this and because of that. And they just taught what was in the history book and let you figure it out yourself, And, of course, we believed in the 3 R's, writing, reading, and arithmetic. And I got up to where I just felt like I was bored in school. I don't know why, but I was bored, so I quit. And it might have been because of money, too. But anyway, if I had advice, read your history, try to treat people right, try to firm, fair, and friendly. And if you can, help them out help downtrodden people as much as you can without injury to yourself and family. And if you live by that, you'll do okay. You might not be perfect, but you'll be okay.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Again, yeah, we
Thanks,
appreciate
Jim.
you coming on here
Yeah,
with us.
thank
Man,
you.
this has
It's
been a
lot of
great
fun.
afternoon.
I hope it didn't bore you.
No, we were looking forward to you coming in. So
I expect
This was good.
your homemade brew next time or your own.
I think I got some stuck away.
Yeah.
So I got one question, Jim.
Yes.
Did you ever eat KFC again?
Oh, boy.
I have to imagine that with Colonel Sanders actually sitting right there, that chicken was better than what you would actually get today.
Oh, yes. It was tremendously good, but my grandmother's.
I always stick to it, man.
That's awesome.
I'm driving out of Kentucky. I'd bought an old 58, I think it was, Chevrolet pickup. It's just a piece of junk for like $30. And I'm going down to Alabama. And I'm driving right outside of, passed right before the line, and I look up around the corner on the freeway. I'm probably going 50 miles an hour, and there's a pole with a big bucket at KFC on it. And I just went, I can't tell this to nobody that I just insulted Colonel Sanders
To his face.
to his
But
face.
grandma was better, right?
Yeah, grandma was better.
Man.
That's good.
Oh, she could cook some fried chicken.
Man, that's a great story. That's cool.
So good.
Well, Jim, thank you.
Oh, I'm
Appreciate you, brother, and your service and everything you've done, and
Yep.
and your words of advice. So very much appreciate you coming over.
We do appreciate you a
Well, I
lot.
appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me. I just,
Yeah, this was awesome. All right.
It was. And thank you for the drink. It's very good. I have to say the coffee was good and the bourbon was very good.
Good.
All right.
I don't get that very often. Good coffee, but
Well, just come see your financial advisors.
I may have to come down here about every morning.
I don't
This
know if
won't
we
be
can,
ready that early in the morning. So
I don't know if we can get that to pass on Sunday morning, but you know.
this is the new this is the new communion right here. You know, you don't need the juice. Just
All right, guys.
it was Jesus' first miracle. Again, was alcohol, right?
Well, that's stretching it.
We just went over that actually a couple
Really?
weeks
Yeah.
ago. Yep.
All right.
Yep. So
Communion.
water to wine.
Yep. But cool.
Smooth. Very smooth.
You know, it's not too bad. I like it a lot. It's a Content here is for illustrative and educational purposes only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice. Nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Market conditions change continuously. Past performance is no guarantee of future results or success. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Securities offered by registered representatives through Private Client Services, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory products and services offered by investment advisory representatives through RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. RFG Advisory, Billings Group, and Private Client Services are unaffiliated entities.